So let's jump into the 9 disruptive e-commerce trends. I'm going to start with contextual commerce, which a lot of people have probably heard the buzzword around. But contextual commerce is all about allowing shoppers to buy while they're performing their normal daily activities, either in the offline world, the online world, or in a virtual reality world. So Pinterest is a good example. So people use Pinterest, and we're talking well over 70 million active users, to plan their future purchases. But now Pinterest has been testing over the last year or so, allowing select online retailers to incorporate buy buttons in that experience. So the second that that planner moves from planning to buying mode, they can buy without having to jump into a whole different website. Amazon Dash buttons are another example. There's hundreds of them now. So you're doing laundry and you're out of dryer sheets, press a button, you'll get it tomorrow. And the stats show that almost half of people that have Amazon Dash buttons actually use them on a frequent basis, which has the potential to be disruptive. Chatbots, which we'll cover in a few slides, Eric, the ability of customers to interact informally with the companies they'd like to do business with and even place orders without having to go through that normal chained e-commerce experience. Booking your dinner reservation when you get an Uber. And the one that I think has the potential to be the most disruptive out of all of these things, if not a close second to the Pinterest button, which I do think is going to be a game changer for a lot of retailers, is Alexa, I'm out of shampoo. So these Amazon Echo products, the Google Home products, and there's many others, where you can, over time, train it to know that when you say I'm out of shampoo, it knows that there's a particular brand that you like in a particular quantity, and it just orders it for you. We're going to see a lot more of that coming to surface, especially as those voice algorithms get refined. So as I said, Pinterest has over 70 million active users. 93% of them say they use it to plan active purchases. So if you're a marketer and you want to market to people where they hang out, that's a critical destination. And there's not a lot of other places like Pinterest on the internet where you have such a critical mass of people planning product purchases together. On the Dash button from Amazon, over 200 brands are on that now, so I can order my ping pong balls or my Meow Mix or my poop bags by pressing a button. And that saves me time as a shopper, and they're scaling that up pretty dramatically. In fact, the average Dash user has over 3 buttons in their home, and when we look at sales in 2016 compared to the prior year, we're talking 5x growth. And I think the biggest thing constraining that is just how many different Dash buttons are available, and Amazon is clearly scaling that up. What's interesting, and I think this plays well to what EY Studios does for its clients, Eric, is that 62% of U.S. online adults were willing to pay a premium price for a personalized experience. So many of us on this call, and there's some big retailers on this call, and then there's some niche retailers that are growing. But everybody, for the most part, is facing this challenge of commoditization, where shoppers are increasingly price hungry. And even a lot of Amazon shoppers, when they realize Amazon is not offering the lowest price, will shop elsewhere. So really the only way to gain a premium price is through delivering that personalized experience. And part of how you do that is through data, and obviously that's why I co-founded Grow by Data, but another big part of that is through the brand experience you offer your shoppers. And EY Studios, I think of all companies I know of in that space, does that better than anybody. On the speech recognition part, so the standard for Amazon Echo and for Google Home is about 65% accuracy in a noisy environment. This is what they're all after. How well do we do in a noisy environment? Baidu says they've had a breakthrough. They're now up to 81% accuracy. As that accuracy increases, use of those algorithms will increase dramatically. And by 2018, we're going to see 1 billion people buying through their mobile on a daily basis. But they're not all going to be shopping traditional mobile sites. A lot of them will be interacting with other platforms and wanting to buy other products within the context of that experience. And this is just a quick example of the Pinterest buy button, where previously it was just a pin it option, and now we're going to be able to buy it, and they're going to be rolling this out.
Great point, Scott. And before we move on to the second point, which is multi-platform majority, I want to encourage people, if they have any questions for any of the topics, please hit that chat bar and just ask us anything that you like. We may save some of the questions for the very end, but if you can ask us something related to the topic we're covering, we'd love to cover it right then and there. So I encourage you to do that. So yeah, let's go on to multi-platform majority. And that may be a term that a lot of people are not familiar with, so let me kind of break that down. When you look at the platforms available to you, particularly for desktop, tablet, and mobile, you have to look at the way that a majority of shoppers are actually interacting with all these devices. And so one of the terms that gets thrown around a lot is mobile first or smartphone adoption. We hear this all the time. And I will say that I differ from a lot of my contemporaries in terms of how to approach mobile design. And so I'm big time into multi-platform majority mindsets, which we'll explain further here. So this is all about embracing a multi-platform approach that adapts to how most people are really shopping. You know, what are they really doing versus what we think they're doing? What is the data showing us exactly so that we can plan our strategies and adapt accordingly? You know, one of the big things, Scott, that I see a lot is folks upgrade their mobile experience is that they degrade the desktop experience or degrade the tablet experience in favor of mobile. I think we've all seen sites that, you know, look pretty great on mobile, but if you look at it, particularly with responsive design, if you look at it blown up on a larger screen, it looks like a big mobile experience. You know, it doesn't look very good for larger resolutions, and that's something you really want to avoid at all costs. So if we look at some of the stats here, mobile orders is actually risen from 28% in 2015 to 33% in 2016. So clearly on the rise. We see a big increase there. However, 67% are still using desktop. So that's a pretty big number. You know, we're not there where everybody is just shopping on mobile and that's it. And you know, 16% of the carts turn into orders on mobile. Only 16% actually turn into orders on mobile. And so if we look at smartphones, they convert at roughly 1/3 the rate of larger devices. And obviously these are general aggregate numbers. This may not be specific to what your store is doing. You know, I talked to a merchant the other day, and they get 60% of their traffic coming in through mobile, and they actually sell something that I wouldn't have thought is a big mobile magnet, so to speak. But these numbers overall are aggregate. So what's going on? What do we really need to see big picture in terms of how we approach mobile as well as some of the larger resolutions? Well, consumers, what we're finding is consumers switch to desktop because of three main reasons. Number one, they're going for easy navigation. They just frankly don't think it's easy to navigate some mobile devices. Some are, but some aren't very friendly. And so when they go to the desktop version or larger resolutions, they can get around a little bit easier. They also want to see what images look like on a bigger screen. Maybe there's multiple images, maybe there's a lot more information about a product that they frankly just can't digest very well on a mobile device. 26% are saying that. And also, we'll talk about payment. Scott will cover that in detail later. They want to enter their payment information on a larger resolution. And so if we look at an example here of Crutchfield, Crutchfield is a site that I go to. I'm a big headphone fanatic, and I love Crutchfield because one of the things about their responsive design is it works great for desktop, tablet, and mobile, and they're very specific about the functionality that they choose for each resolution. So Scott, that's my thoughts on multi-platform majority.
Yeah, I think great points, and you're right. I mean, right now, the average shopper is still buying on desktop. They may be going between mobile and desktop, but you can't sacrifice the desktop experience for mobile, while at the same time, of course, we do need to really be investing in the mobile experience. So
we've actually got a question here. Can we cover that? I think it's data related with mobile. Can we ask that real quick?
Yeah, we have a question from Lauren Pleat. She asked if there was any data about what size orders we're seeing on mobile. Is it just small purchase amounts, or are people even making large order amounts on mobile? Is there anything specifically tied to the value of the order and what platform it's done on?
Yeah, I can give some. Yeah, Eric, do you have anything on that, or do you want me to go?
You can tackle that. That's a good one for you.
Yeah, so I don't have any kind of aggregate numbers. I just have some kind of anecdotal from a number of merchants that we've actually been analyzing that same question for over the past few months. What we're seeing is surprises. So I can think of a jewelry online retailer that we work with whose AOV on desktop is probably in the $950 to $1,000 range. And when we started really kind of sending a lot more traffic to the mobile experience, we expected that we would see a lot smaller purchases. And what we found was that the primary difference was not AOV. When the sale came through, the mobile experience was probably within, let's call it 10 or 15% of the overall average. The big difference was just conversion rate. I can think of another example of a merchant that's in the apparel category, and they actually saw a higher AOV on mobile because in their mobile experience, they were emphasizing product bundles. They kind of recognized that a lot of their customers would buy multiple products at a time, and they kind of theorized that it would be harder for those shoppers to be, kind of browsing, the primary product and all of its accessories. So, they really started promoting these product bundles, and they were able to see actually an uptick in AOV within kind of certain segments. So I can just speak anecdotally on that, but overall, I would say we've been surprised that AOV hasn't suffered as much.
Great insight. Appreciate your question, Lauren. Thank you for asking that. So let's go on to marketplacification. Great word. That's the word of the day, Scott.
Yeah, thank you. I really struggled with this one. I'm not sure. It probably violates a lot of English rules. But so we all know what a marketplace is. It's a shopping site like Amazon, and it allows private brands and third-party sellers to sell directly to consumers. And there's a lot of marketplaces out there. It's not just Amazon. eBay obviously is a popular marketplace. Walmart has a marketplace on its Walmart.com site, and of course, its acquisition. Newegg is adopting a marketplace strategy. Sears is as well. There's Etsy. There's kind of a whole host of new boutique marketplaces getting invested in, partly because of Jet's success, where a very relatively small amount of money invested in Jet led to a multi-billion-dollar exit in several years. And so the kind of the trend towards marketplaces is creating a new set of competencies that online retailers need to adapt to. And the first is just data compliance and enrichment. So again, these marketplaces do really well with efficiency, and they train shoppers to look for kind of the critical benefits like low price and fast shipping. And a lot of being able to succeed and stand out in such an environment comes down to, are you sending the right data to these marketplaces so that you avoid suspensions? Because Google has been increasingly suspending people from Google Shopping. We have a lot of merchants that see upwards of 40 to 50% of their product catalogs disabled on Google Shopping because they're not giving the right UPC codes. And on the enrichment side, giving good product attributes like size and color and dimension and things like that, being able to help those shoppers move through the buying cycle faster by answering their questions proactively, that is a big component to being successful on marketplaces. Pricing strategy, especially as you're selling through a primary website and multiple marketplaces. When do you undercut yourself on price? When do you not? Assortment strategies. So a lot of merchants we work with will not put their entire catalog on Amazon for a lot of reasons, one of which is Amazon may compete with you, but being smart about which products you give to which platform so that you're allowing yourself to ultimately maximize margins on your primary site. Distribution strategy, so when do you do fulfilled by Amazon versus sending from your own distribution centers versus kind of working with your drop shippers and opening up potentially new distribution centers to get closer to your shoppers. Demand forecasting, so you know what items are popular when, that you're kind of being able to anticipate those spikes, and overall channel strategy. So one of the things that's happening in terms of changing customer expectations revolves around the speed at which they might get their merchandise. And so a few years ago, when we saw Google and Amazon experimenting with same-day shipping and a lot of 1 or 2 day shipping, a lot of online retailers kind of rolled their eyes and said, well, it's going to be impossible to really deliver that at scale. But what's interesting is 150 metropolitan areas hold nearly 75% of the population. And so shoppers are going to be trained over time to expect that they can get their items in almost real time. Now, you can in part kind of partner with the marketplaces to be able to deliver this by using their fulfillment. And in other cases, you may have to adapt. So for example, Amazon is investing a lot of money in marketplace, and that's going to be reflected reflected, I believe, over time in higher prices on Amazon. So, how do you stand out? One way, I'm not recommending this necessarily, but you may go to your customers and say, listen, if you buy from us, you're not going to get it quick. In fact, it may take a week or two lead time, but if you buy it from us, you'll get the better price. So figuring out how you adapt to this kind of changing value scape is going to be important. What's interesting is that in 2016, web sales were up 15.6%, but over 60% of that increase went to Amazon. So a lot of the growth is concentrating in that particular marketplace. Amazon, however, generates almost 50% of its revenue from third-party sellers. So Amazon is growing in part because they're kind of embracing these third-party marketplaces. It's kind of the ultimate co-opetition where they put you out of business if they could, but they really do rely on these third-party sellers because they don't want all these items on their balance sheet. Over a third of IR 1000 merchants are selling through Amazon today. And even Walmart, who's really been investing in their marketplace strategy, saw almost a 30% lift in Q4 sales as they acquired Jet.com and really invest in kind of leveraging their distribution network as a way of competing against Amazon, who in many ways has been eating their lunch. And what was really surprising to me, when you look at the Amazon sellers who are generating the most sales, as we see in this screenshot below, most of these you probably have never heard of. PharmaPax has gotten some good PR over the past year. They're probably doing somewhere in the ballpark of $100 million a year selling through Amazon. But who is Hippo Books? Who is Avalanche Brands? Who's Import CDs? These are companies that are really getting smart about the logistics, the data, in order to maximize their sales on these marketplaces. And that's why a lot of these kind of no-name brands are really seeing surging sales.
Awesome point. Thank you so much, Scott. So number 4 is trusted curation. The key word there is trusted. What can we do as merchants to really ramp up the amount of trust compared to who we're competing against, whether it's Amazon or anybody else? How can we create more trust for our brands? Well, customers are demanding more personalization, and that's the big thing that's driving this trend. They don't want a one-size-fits-all experience. They want to experience that is very specific for their needs, for their shopping. And so it's based on a few things, most notably a personal preference. What do I like in particular? Sometimes when I go to a store, I don't want to sort through thousands of products that I would never buy. Megan, are you the same way?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm 5'10", so I don't have any need for any regular pant or crap in my life.
That's a good example.
I just need to go straight to the tall clothes.
Right, and so, I wear 2XL T-shirts, and I only want to see the T-shirts that works for me. I don't want to sort through a bunch of styles that I might like, but they don't cover in my size. And so, the next thing is it's based on purchase history. So if I have bought a lot of 2XL T-shirts, hey, we have this new 2XL T-shirt, this new style that, based on, you've bought this black shirt in the past, you might be interested in this shirt as well. And it starts to compile items that I might be interested in based on my purchase history. Now, what I think is going to happen more and more is that location and demographics will factor into the overall experience. So Scott lives in Boston, we're here in Atlanta, and so some of the things that we might buy are very similar, but based on weather, based on different things, based on sports teams, whatever it is. I see you pumping fists there, okay? I brought my Yankee down south, right, Megan? But, that factors in terms of the overall experience. And so merchants have to take advantage of that. And so, when we look overall, and merchants are taking advantage of this, the end result is it creates a boutique approach. And so I see a lot of merchants kind of trying to figure out how in the world do I take on the giants, the big competition who can do this, and they're typically generalists though. And so smaller merchants can take on more of a specialist mindset, more of this boutique approach that applies very specifically to what customers are wanting. And what's the result? Well, it results in higher customer loyalty, order values, as well as lower return rates because they're just frankly more happy. Mm-hmm. So here I am dishing on Amazon. Let me talk about something nice about them, and I actually use a screen grab from your computer, Megan. I was not stalking you. This is
anyone who knows me knows that I'm obsessed with Prime, and the cool thing is that Amazon as a store is super overwhelming, and they have tons of products. But if you happen to be on your Amazon account and you notice the third tab in, that'll say your name, so mine says megansamazon.com, it really pulls up a whole page of recommendations. So these top items are things that I've purchased in the past: batteries, fluff, that's a New England item. I can't find it down here, so I had to order it on Amazon. Household stuff, nail polish. But as you scroll down, you find more and more things that they're recommending based on these past items that you've purchased. Additionally, on Amazon's item pages, everyone knows that they have great cross-sells. Recommended for you, and customers who viewed this item also viewed, and often purchased with type of stuff. Amazon doesn't do everything right, but they are really great in the trusted curation department and knowing how to sync up things that we may have purchased in the past with what we may want to purchase in the future.
So we have attendees making fun of your products here. The Fluffernutter right there in the middle there. So
Fluff is amazing.
Fluff, yeah.
Well, and fluff with peanut butter is a Fluffernutter. I know Scott knows what I'm talking about. So.
I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, it's just marshmallow cream. You can't get it down here.
I got you. Okay. Well,
I'm showing my Yankee side.
So, why are we showing Amazon? Why aren't we showing another merchant that's doing this, the trusted curation idea? Well, I think we have to understand that through technology, Amazon is informing a lot of the conversation, a lot of the technology that they're innovating. But one of the things, Megan, that when I look at this, it's a pretty banal approach. It's very ordinary. It's just coughing up some items, but it's not real specific in a way that would appeal to you, Megan, because it's just, here's some products.
Right.
And Amazon has to do that. They're the ultimate generalist superstore. So I'm thinking about merchants that could take advantage of this type of technology, but do it in a way that is truly curated. It's very specific to their brand. It's more personable. It has just more personality, period.
Right.
And that's something Amazon can't do by default because it's Amazon. And so one of the worst things that you could do is just try and copy Amazon and not imbue this technology with your own specific brand approach. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, and Eric, I'm not going to needle you at all about the Falcon Patriots game a few weeks ago.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. This is going very well up until now.
Yeah, but I'm not going to do that. No, I think you're right. I mean, what I like about the UI sites that I see is that Amazon is trying to earn your trust in terms of trusted curation by trying to predict what you want as intelligently as possible. But the direction that I see you guys take a lot in how you craft these online experiences is, as a shopper, I want to know that there's a specialist on the other end of that computer who has evaluated potential products and is kind of thoughtfully suggesting to me what I should buy if I fit a certain category. And that's something that Amazon does not do well and won't do well, that smaller online retailers can, I think, do very well. So kind of building on this idea of trusted curation, let's talk about collaborative filtering. And before I jump into this, I want to kind of preface this and say that a lot of the trends that we're sharing today may seem like they would be complex and time-consuming and costly to implement. And I want to dispel a little bit of that, because underlying a lot of these trends is simply data. It's simply having your data centralized in a way that's actionable. If you kind of have your data game together, and this is why I co-founded Grow by Data, you can execute on a lot of these strategies much faster and much more quickly than it might seem. So collaborative filtering is all about anticipating the needs of shoppers by analyzing the behavior of similar shoppers in the past. And I'll try to make that make sense. So one example of collaborative filtering is customers who bought this item also bought this other item. Frequently bought together, so those product bundles I mentioned, great way of anticipating a customer need, allowing them to buy the complementary products they need without clicking to multiple pages, and driving AOV higher, and kind of fighting that commoditization bit where the shopper isn't necessarily pricing each item out separately. They're kind of preferring the convenience of getting that bundle all in one place. Recently viewed items, but kind of more interestingly, looking at those recently viewed items and then relating them to other items in the catalog that merchants who looked at, that shoppers who looked at that product have also expressed interest in. And this all starts eliminating the need for the shopper to only use search on your site and to only use navigation. Now you're taking your vast catalog and you're kind of shrinking the world of possibilities in a way that helps that shopper move through the buying cycle faster. Recommendations just for you is a big part of that, as Megan was suggesting. Bestsellers in a category, whether you're kind of surfacing them on a category page or even putting a badge on a product, just labeling it a bestseller, that in some way gives it kind of some social proof that helps shoppers narrow their search and they rely on it. You can also leverage a lot of these tactics in pay-per-click marketing. So by using concepts like lookalike audiences, if you have shoppers that do well, increasingly Google is tailoring its algorithm to help you find other shoppers like that shopper as a way to kind of scale who can see your ads. And then recommendations by email. So not just kind of pushing these dynamic recommendations on the website, but also pushing it by email. Now what we know is that algorithm-based recommendation engines drive over 1/3 of Amazon's revenue, which is a big deal. I mean, it's probably second only to search in terms of what types of navigation tools drive sales. That's a big deal. When Amazon released customers who bought X also bought Y, they generated a pretty quick increase in sales of about 30%. So imagine if you're a $30 million a year online retailer, by really taking advantage of collaborative filtering options like this, imagine if your revenue would be able to go up $9 million simply because you found a new way for shoppers to discover the items they would want on your website. By putting product recommendations on a website or an email, we know that the shoppers who click on those recommendations are much more likely to buy, meaning that, at least in the case of Amazon and in other sets as well, these recommendations are becoming really kind of useful for these shoppers. Personalized emails with personalized email triggers that personalize what's in that content. We're seeing click-to-open rates that are dramatically higher. And in general, almost 90%, almost all shoppers indicate that personalization plays a big role in their purchasing process. So this is not an afterthought. This should not be a widget you add to your website as an afterthought. This is something that can really be a game changer for the sites that take advantage of it properly. And this is an example of, I think, a game-changing use of collaborative filtering. So my kid, my 3.5-year-old, loves Paw Patrol, and he's actually done this, by the way. Like, he can comparison shop on Amazon without me using features like this. We see the Rocky recycling truck that he likes, but Amazon knows that there's other products that people who buy this might be considering either as complementary purchases or alternatives. And so rather than making me as the shopper have to click into like 5 different windows and then maybe go back to Google and start the search from scratch, they're giving me kind of my universe of best options all in one glance. And because they know shoppers are becoming more data hungry, they're becoming smarter about knowing which data the shopper cares about to make the decision, including item dimensions and reviews and price. So this is an example of how collaborative filtering speeds up the decision process. And it's these kind of things that actually help online retailers get a premium.
That's great. Thank you, Scott. So number 6 is chatbots. And Scott, I will admit I've had to kind of expand my understanding on this whole concept, because this one, I still look, Megan, I look at our instant messaging and everything. It's just like, that's it, right? I don't look at it necessarily as a form to embrace commerce.
Right.
Was that natural for you when you think about that?
Yeah, I have never thought of ordering anything through a messaging app, for sure. I mean, you think about ordering online or through an app or on a phone number, but I would never, think of using a messenger app to order from. So this is new to me too.
Well, since 2015, as it says here, this is almost unbelievable, but apps have more users than all social media combined. Just saw a report from Business Insider with that. I mean, if you look at Facebook Messenger alone, they've got 900 million, in some cases on peak months, over 1 billion active users per month. And so that's a lot of participation that, frankly, brands would be morons not to embrace in terms of some capacity with these chatbots. Well, what's the deal on chatbots? Well, there's really 2 types. One we're probably more familiar with, at least I am, is rule-based. I got one of these from a donut shop around the corner from where I live, and they're like, hey, we got a new promotion for donuts, text sale to this number to get 20% off. But it's rule-based. If I enter this specific information, it'll cost something back to me. But a more advanced version of this involves AI. Maybe Elon Musk is right. This is all going the way of cyborgs. I don't know. But if I asked this donut shop with my cell phone, if I said, well, what's the deal on the donut? What donuts do you have in stock right now? Do you have some new flavors? Do you have some new specials? It wouldn't know how to react to that. But evolving AI would know how to interact with this type of input. And so those are two very distinct types. And it's a trend that we really need to keep in mind here. The big question I want you to ask yourselves is, could a chatbot help you solve your customer service bottlenecks? Is there a way that you could automate some of the customer service issues that are maybe plaguing you right now? That's a big question for you to start asking. And some of you are thinking, well, how does this exactly work now and maybe even in the future? Well, the main idea is that you take existing customer data. I'll turn it over to Scott to give some information on this in just a second. But you basically take the information that you have for a customer and apply it to the app. Whether you have a native chatbot app, something that you've actually created for your brand, or something that's pre-existing like we covered earlier, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, etc. A good example for maybe to look at is Pizza Hut. So if you're on Facebook Messenger and you want a new Pizza Hut pizza, I guess you'd always have a new Pizza Hut pizza.
Always a fresh one.
Right, yeah, a fresh one. But you can actually engage with Pizza Hut and the brand right there on Facebook Messenger. It remembers what you had on your pizza last time, the various toppings, etc. And it's becoming more and more of an advanced idea as far as a trend we need to pay attention to. So Scott, from a data perspective, what's your take on this before we go to number 7?
Yeah, so all of the things that you're talking about are actually not that hard to execute on if you have your data out of its silos. But this is critical, I think, to e-commerce. I think in the next few years, we're going to see a lot of merchants using these types of chatbots.
Me too.
So let's talk briefly about data-driven workflows, and this is all about making better decisions and implementing them faster by centralizing your data. So this enables things like hyper-targeted promotions. So you don't want to offer free shipping to all of your customers, but maybe you'd like to offer free shipping to customers who live within 300 miles of your distribution facilities. Optimizing marketing, again, using data, putting that data in the hands of your marketers so that they know where the highest customer lifetime value is and they can maximize towards that. Again, product bundling to improve AOV, rapidly adding, enriching, and updating products. So the kind of classic Grow by Data example is a client of ours that was approaching Q4, and they wanted to get a lot of new products live on their site because their biggest vendor just came out with maybe 1,000 or 2,000 new ones. By using automation to pull that data from the vendor, quickly understand which fields were kind of game time ready to go and the others that needed intervention, they were able to get these products up on their website within a few weeks in Q4, and it ended up being the game changer for them in the holiday season. A lot of their competitors didn't get the products up until Q1. Forecasting demand, dynamically routing orders, optimizing prices, again, to improve that margin using data, and then even pursuing subscription models, which Amazon has been doing well on. And ultimately, as a retailer, there's 3 things you need to grow. You need to attract the right traffic, you need to convert them at a high rate, and drive repeat sales. And subscription models do a fantastic job at driving that increase. And then just being smart about how you prioritize your channels. And what we know is that customers in the top third of their industry, in terms of using their data for decision making, are 5% more productive and 6% more profitable. And that's just by being in the top third. And as we know from our friend Warren Buffett in his Saturday letter, when he talked about the importance of compound interest, being able to gain even small advantages like these really rack up over time. By 2020, we're going to see at least a third of all data pass through the cloud, which means we're going to be able to monetize it. But that said, today, on average, companies are only using an average across business, only 0.5% of all data is ever being analyzed and used. So the disruption is going to come when we see that number grow from 0.5% to a much higher number. Companies are going to be able to do a much better job at serving their customers. And McKinsey estimates that companies can be driving 60% improvements in operating margins by exploiting this type of data analytics. But now they're seeing on average less than a 1% impact. And a lot of that is because people just aren't executing well. And this is an example of a data-driven workflow. So on Sports Unlimited, if you're shopping for a particular brand, Riddell, you may see a same-day shipping offer that's tied specifically to that brand. However, if you're looking for a different product or a different brand, you wouldn't see that. And this is something we do through exclusive offers, and it has a huge impact. As we go into holiday shakeup, Eric, I think one of the key points I want to kind of frame up as you go into this is using data and planning out promotions wisely so that you're not kind of reacting at the last minute when a holiday is coming, but you can kind of be thoughtful and get all your marketing in line so that you can really drive a big holiday season.
That's exactly right, Scott. And unfortunately, it's rare when merchants embrace that kind of strategy. They're typically holding off to the very last minute, and when they do come up with something, it's a pretty rushed type of promotion, and it goes exactly along the lines of what we talked about earlier with this kind of set it and forget it type of mentality. And so we'll talk a little bit more about how to actually get out of that here in just a second. But it's important to remember that nobody is waiting for Black Friday anymore to start the holidays. Megan, would you agree?
Yeah, no, and one thing that Eric, you and I talked about is that it's not just about buying items to give as gifts. Like my husband and I bought furniture on Black Friday this year because we knew it would be a great price.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the early bird deal that we got. We ended up going at like 8 o'clock that Friday night to buy it. But it's all about working with your consumers and hitting them when they want to shop.
That's right. And so, really the idea here is not about Black Friday. It's really about Cyber November. It's about a whole month's worth of lead up, as well as capitalizing on the actual days of Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And so it's not 2 days anymore. It's an entire season worth of promotion. And so it's really spurred on by what Amazon's doing. Like we talked about earlier, they're kind of framing the conversation. And they have the countdown to Black Friday, Deals Week, right? So it's not just Deals Week, it's the countdown to Deals Week with its own inherent set of promotions. And so, one of the things that I would encourage people to do is to spread out the promotions, to give consumers more to chew on beyond just 1 or 2 days. And that takes some creativity, doesn't it, Megan? I mean, it's just to start filling out a month's worth, let's say, of promotions of which items do we promote, which ones do we not. That takes some foresight there.
You can't start the week of Thanksgiving and hope to be successful.
That's right. And so when we look historically at what's going on here, 2015 was the first year that we really saw this in practice. I'm sure it happened, here and there in some previous years, but 2015 is where we started to see the page start to turn here. As a result, we saw some stores from November 1st to January 4th, they've increased, 3.2% versus a 5% increase the year before. That's pretty significant.
Yeah.
And this is taking into account, it's worth noting, this isn't taking into account not just online, but all forms of retail.
Right.
And in an omni-channel world, that's really kind of the world we're living in. And so as far as kind of a to-do here, something to really look at with your disruptive strategy, is to encourage a prolonged urgency. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, it's easy to have urgency on something, a sale that's going to disappear in an hour or even 24 hours. So you put something out there, and that urgency exists because it's about to go away in a very short amount of time. But when we're looking at a month, 2 months worth of promotion, then that's a prolonged type of strategy. And so that's why you have to inject certain sales, certain promotions that work to support the overall strategy. Like we were saying earlier, you have to get out of the set it and forget it modality. I mean, if you have that and you're like, well, this is the promotion I'm going to run just through the holidays. We got this big promotion. I hope my customers dig that. Well, if they don't, you're screwed. You've got this thing up there that you halfway created. And if it doesn't work, what are you going to do? And you can't adapt because you're not allowing yourself enough time to seize on this trend. So I really encourage people, if holiday shopping is where it's at for you, start thinking about it now. Put some brain power in this, even though it's months and months away. I really encourage that. Scott, what's number 9?
Number 9, third-party payments. So this is all about reducing friction when your mobile shoppers are wanting to buy. And so PayPal, Apple Pay, Amazon, Google Wallet, all examples of kind of payment options you could be adding into your mobile store that make it easier for shoppers. And what we know is that 40% of online shoppers are more likely to shop when there's a one-click checkout option. Half of IR 500 merchants offer PayPal's one-touch for mobile checkout. And Nielsen found that nearly 50% of shoppers are more likely to buy when there is a pay with PayPal option, because again, they don't have to go search for that credit card. 44% of US retailers use Apple Pay or plan to. So these types of payment options are becoming ubiquitous. And so your shoppers may increasingly not be surprised when they see these shopping options on your site. In fact, they may prefer it. And Apple Pay is right now, at least amongst retailers, the most popular of these third-party payment options. But Android's getting steam, Google, PayPal, and then Samsung. And this is an example of how by simplifying that mobile checkout process, in this case by consolidating the credit card buttons, actually removing an Amazon payment option, and really just focusing on the PayPal option, a 70% increase in revenue per visit was generated, which is a game-changing result for a mobile retailer.